Tell me if this situation makes sense to you. You reach out to a prospect, you're connecting with them for the first call. You don't want them to not like you, so you spend all this time trying to build this amazing rapport, and in the end, they end up not buying from you. If you ever had a situation like that, say yes. Don't be shy. Well, today we're going to talk about exactly this situation and how you can go about fixing it. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, yes, I'm coming to you from my home again, my home office. We're still under production with our new studio setup, but it's going to be fun, and I'm excited for it. Today, we're going to talk to our friend Chris Caldwell, and Chris runs an organization called Sell As You Are, and his concept is really around you being you, grounded in your personality and in your mentality and who you are, and not trying to be somebody else, and following systematic ways and procedures to do this and come up with the right energy. And he has some great insights, great information, and you can find more details in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and check that out. But also check out our sponsors right there, because they're giving you some amazing offer. That tools that I recommend, that I use on a day-to-day basis, I recommend you take advantage of it, and you can find details about that in the show notes. Now, speaking about this, we do have a mastermind, and some of you have asked about our sales mastermind, and I would love to have you join us. You can find more details. Go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Today, Chris and I are going to go into this concept, this phenomenon about trying to be liked, and how this can be detrimental towards your sales process, your sales effectiveness, and what you should do instead of that. And he's going to give you a 3-step breakdown, and we're going to dive right in and go straight into it. You're going to see how he rolls into the first point and sets this up so we can follow along. And the story about the dog at the end, it's amazing. Check it out. Chris, welcome to the show.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you and to have this conversation. I believe there's so often as sales reps, and we fall out of authenticity where we don't sell the way that, the way that we need to be. I'm trying to pretend to be somebody else. And I know you have amazing systems around this and ideas, and I bragged about you in the teaser a little bit. And so I want to jump right in to demonstrate that expertise, because I know you bring a lot of value to the sales community and to folks. But specifically, we want to make sure that we are following a process. Most salespeople show up trying to be nice, hoping that they'll get people to buy from them. Talk to me about why that's a problem, Chris.
It's a huge issue, and actually, the more salespeople I meet with, the more I realize how big of a problem this is. I was just leading a retreat in Salt Lake City with the Alluvians community, and so we had about 40 sales professionals there, and it was a 3 or 4 day immersion that we ran. And one of the major themes that we talked about was how we as humans go around trying to get our unmet needs met by other people all day, every day, right? So we use circumstances, situations, and other people as strategies in an unconscious way to get our own needs met.
Can you give me an example of that? Sorry.
Sure, absolutely. So you go to a youth soccer complex and look at the parents in the bleachers, and you will be able to tell which parents are not getting their personal emotional needs met through the performance of their child on the soccer field. And you will be able to see very clearly which parents are getting their personal emotional needs met through their child's soccer performance. And I know that from a parent who has kids that play soccer. It is like there's no example. It makes it more crystal clear than that one.
And I agree with you there. We have our son started T-ball, and at the T-ball at the park, they have a sign, and one of the things it says on the sign that kids kind of essentially kids will be kids. Don't they're trying to tell parents to calm down. And then one of them was like, no scholarship will be given out today. No college scholarship. Because you find, you go back to what you're saying, it's like there's so much that they're looking for that fulfillment, I guess, through the kids or their world. And it's, I get it.
Yeah, so they're becoming, and I'll circle back to sales, right? So in this example with the kids, the parents are emotionally enmeshed with their children's performance, right? If like their child's performance means something about them personally, like is somehow defining to them in some way. So what we see is, right, we do this all the time, not to pick on soccer parents. And I used to coach soccer, so I had to deal with the soccer parents, but we do this all the time. So what happens is that no one ever points this out to us. So then we get a job in sales, maybe at 18, 21, 25, 45, whenever we get it. And we have these needs, like these very human needs that we've been trying to get met all of our life in different strategies. And now we're trying to do it in sales. So it could be emotional safety. It could be financial security. That's the most obvious one. It could be the need to be liked, the need to be accepted, the need to be seen and heard, the need to be understood, the need to matter, the need to feel worthy. Right? All of these things and these needs, these specific needs that I'm mentioning, are needs that come from a place of scarcity. And they're low vibrational needs. So another need, say for like partnership. Well, if I head into a meeting with a prospect and I recognize like the need I'm trying to consciously get met here is partnership or co-creation, right? Or growth or expansion or impact. I'm going to come in with a totally different energy into that conversation than if the need I'm trying to get met is to be liked or financial security or to matter or to feel worthy, right? One's coming from abundance, like a yes and mentality, and the other's coming from scarcity.
Oh, that's powerful. And I feel that in so many ways, everyone is listening to this episode can say, I have been there, or that was me this morning. If it is, don't worry. We got a solution for you.
It happens to me too. I go unconscious too, just like we all do, right?
So well, hear me out. One of the first things you talked about with me was we need to create a belief system. Can you explain that part? If we're going to stick to
so one of the biggest issues I see is because we all are enmeshed, right, in every day through our lives, and we carry that into sales, what we don't even think about is we also, in addition to that, don't consider what we actually think about salespeople. So I did an exercise with this group of about 40 sales professionals I was with, like I mentioned, over this past weekend in Salt Lake City with Illuvians. And the first exercise we did, I said, close your eyes. I don't even want you to think. I want you to write down the first 3 words to pop into your mind. And I said, salesperson. And I usually say salesman, just because it's like it actually triggers people even more, right? Because they think about like death of a salesman, that type of, Glengarry Glen Ross, Wolf of Wall Street type of stuff. Like, but I want to be respectful to all the amazing sales women and not like trigger them inappropriately. But the words they wrote down were all negative.
Yeah.
So think about that. Imagine what it would be like to be a school teacher if you believe school teachers were pushy, slimy, manipulative, selfish, greedy, obnoxious, annoying, on and on and on. These are the types of words we get when we say salesperson or salesman. Imagine the amount of misalignment and how out of integrity a school teacher would be showing up all day, every day, if he or she had subconscious beliefs about teachers in that way. Now do it for surgeons. Now do it for lawyers and for bankers, right? And by the way, we see some lawyers who show up that way. All the lawyer jokes, right? They live in it too, right? So what we want to pay attention to is not only are we getting our needs met, but we're also entering into a profession in which we have negative beliefs about that profession. And we show up trying to distort our own authentic behavior, our own truth, in order to avoid triggering that reaction in a prospect. So if I believe salespeople are pushy, greedy, slimy, manipulative, selfish, etc., and I get a job in sales and you are my prospect, I am going to then behave all the way at the other end of the spectrum to do everything I can to potentially avoid you maybe thinking one of those things about me. And when you do that, all you're doing is just like you have the Glengarry Glen Ross, Wolf of Wall Street, Grant Cardone salesperson on one end of the spectrum, right? Then what happens is you don't want to be seen as that, Jordan Belfort. So then you water yourself down and give all your power away, and then end up just becoming like a weak, inexpressive, unhelpful version of yourself. And that creates so much anxiety and fear because you're giving all your power away.
Yeah. And I think this is so powerful, guys. If you haven't, I mean, the first 5 minutes of this episode already, it's just like straight up like I don't know, a masterclass already. And I feel like that behavior impacts you in so many different ways. And I've done it before where I know certain things, and I know you're going to get to it, but I know certain things I should do, but then I question it in my head. I don't want to be pushy, like the next appointment, or I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to seem like I'm just pushy for the dollar, trying to get the other people involved in the process. I don't want to be pushy and make them, clam up and not want to meet with me again. So I'm not going to ask them about their internal buying process. Like those things cause me to be that I'm just a friend. I don't want to be, and then you stay in a friend zone and you never get a chance to progress any further.
You're spot on. And I would also like to say, like, keep in mind the reason I'm so passionate about all of this stuff is because that was me.
I know,
was
right?
doing all of this stuff. Like, I was not born like with this understanding. Like, I went, my passion formed from my pain. I was that guy. I was getting my needs met. I was giving my power away. I was trying to pay my mortgage with compliments, and it wasn't really working. Right. And here's the thing. I was like a fish in water. And someone asked, it's like when one fish turns to the other and says like, man, there's a lot of great water here. And the fish is like, what are you talking about? Right. It's like I was in it and I had no idea I was in it. And then I had an experience and an individual point out that I was swimming in it. And it rocked my world. And then that began, and led up to everything I do now with sales professionals and sales teams.
It's powerful, man. Well, the framework is the next big point of this. Now that you know this stuff, how did you come to fix it? And I think one part was that belief system. Yep. So I need to change the way I look at this before I get into a conversation. That's the belief system that I need to change. Yep. That I'm actually coming to help you, to bring value to you, that I have a resource to solve a problem that you have. But then now, what's that framework look like, if there is one, that I can utilize to make the conversation proper?
Sure. So we have, in our training, we have a whole system that we take people through, a 6-step system we take people through. And it is rooted not just in practical, tactical, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, why to say it, but it's rooted in the energy of your personal power, of driving toward commitment, of coming from those higher energetic needs, right? So that is just like laced throughout all of it. But I would say, and one thing I learned early in my sales career, that more than anything, you have to begin by setting the proper frame. And I say that because in every healthy relationship, romantic relationship, business relationship, there is a harmony and a balance of energies, of the masculine and feminine energies, not genders. That it doesn't have anything to do with gender. Energies. And we all have masculine and feminine energies inside of us, right? So the masculine energy is the structure, the feminine energy is the flow, right? So masculine energy is typically execution, feminine energy is creativity, right? So these things, the yin and the yang, literally, that's what the yin yang is, right? Like that's literally what the symbol is standing for. It's representing the masculine and feminine energies. So, and the dark and the light. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are stepping up immediately, as soon as we can, so we do not fall prey to our needs of being liked or accepted or giving our power away. And we want to set that masculine container, energetic container, so to speak, set that frame. Why? Because if I'm selling sales training, who's the sales training expert? Me or the VP of sales? I am. If I'm selling cybersecurity, who's the cybersecurity expert? Like, who's the expert on my solution? It's always me. Insurance, financial services, tech, it doesn't matter. It's always me. And so the expert needs to set the frame. And so for us, it's just like 3 key things. We double check time to make sure that we're both aligned on how much time we have and how large the capacity of the container is. Then we talk about the agendas, what the prospect would typically want to hear about and talk about, what I, as the sales professional, will want to make sure I talk about. At this point, I'm enrolling them in the idea of doing a proper discovery, saying you probably want to hear more about our programs, who we work with, the results we drive, what they look like, the prices, stuff like that. Sure. Okay. We'll get to that as it comes up. Obviously I want to hear more about you too. What's going on? Is it all right if we dive into some of that, right? You're co-creating it with them. You're enrolling them into the conversation. So you're getting their permission in that way. So really energetically, that's very important. And then I always pre-sell next steps at the beginning of every conversation, on what will happen, whether it's like I always talk about telling me no, especially on the first discovery call, non-negotiable. It's like, you can tell me no. I always say I have a wife, 3 kids, I make cold calls. This face can handle a no. Like, you can tell me no. Like it's like I tried to date in high school. Like, I got no's. Like, you have no idea, right? So I always say that, like, you can tell me no, because the thing is that what sales professionals should be focusing on is the number one objective for every first discovery call should be one thing and one thing only. Shouldn't be a closed deal, shouldn't be a second call. It should be to get the truth. That should always be the number one objective for every sales conversation. How do I get to the truth? The truth will set me free. So how do I get to the truth? So I always tell my clients that you go time, then you talk about agendas. And when you talk next steps in a first discovery call, start with, you can tell me no. We're not fit for everyone. You may realize we're not fit for you. That's okay. And you may not be a fit for us, and we'll tell you no. I'll tell you no also. I don't want to waste your time. And then you pre-sell, alternatively, and I always say the same thing. This is just my phraseology. Alternatively, this conversation, we could really be gaining some momentum towards something, moving in the right direction. And if that's the case, I don't play phone tag, and I hate emails. So I would ask you to just get your calendar out before we hop off, and we'll figure out when we're going to talk again. And you setting that frame is you acting into, right, the higher vibrational powers, the higher vibrational needs of like partnership, co-creation. I'm leading the call. I'm staying in my power. Now, a guy, as I was talking about this just a couple days ago on the retreat, one guy said, like, man, I have some real head trash around taking control and maintaining control. He was like, there's some negative connotations. And I asked him, I said, do you sell your solution to people who don't need it? And he said, no. I said, do you trick, lie, or manipulate people? He said, no. I said, do you look at prospects like a dollar sign? And he said, sometimes. And I said, right? God bless him. He's honest. But I said, let's call him Bill. I said, Bill, that's your problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to fix that before you can really step into your power. Because he's got a big heart. This guy's got a huge heart. And if he doesn't fix that, then yeah, when he steps into his power, he will be potentially taking advantage of someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I think that honesty there with yourself is critical. That, man, I thought the first point was good. Dang, that second point was fire right there. All right. So let's see what you got to wrap us up. And by the way, guys, we have a link back so you can connect with Chris and some of his stuff. As you can see in back there, he strongly encouraged you to sell as you are. And we'll touch base on that before we wrap up.
100%, brother.
But unreasonable, you kind of started talking about this, and I can see it being so. I know that I didn't do it. And I had situations where I meet with prospects. And I'll snitch on myself. I have this client, we're planning a training for their team right now. This prospect came through the funnel, and they're looking at us and multiple different individuals as well. But the end of the conversation, it was very easy where, was kind of trying to be dismissive to say, all right, I'll get back to you. But I had to come out and just like tell her. But in my head at that point, I had this thought like, well, I don't want to be desperate. I've done this for years, right? For almost 20 years. But I still found myself in a situation saying to myself that battle. But at the end, I had to just tell her, like, but better yet, let's set up a time as opposed to letting her go with this. We're going to connect a little later. The unreasonable. And what we try to do in our system is we tell them at the very beginning, like you're saying, that if at the very end, we're going to make a decision. What's what we're going to do if it's, yay or nay. But we get to the end sometimes and they forget about that.
They forget.
And but you did being unreasonable. Talk to me about how do you make sure you're unreasonable with that? Is that the setup at the beginning, or is that you lace it throughout it as well, or
so
the end?
Yes. So a couple things. When I talk about, like, when we do in our system, it's called setting that frame, is the expectations check. Like, we're setting expectations for how we're going to show up, what we're going to do next, etc. That's why I make sure, and my mentor taught me this years ago, and he's incredible. He was David Sandler's 5th employee, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And so he is like OG in the sales training space. Like, back when pretty much nobody was doing it, he was doing it. And he said that over the course of his career, he realized that, like, literally pointing out, like, not, if it's not a good fit, you can let me know. Saying things like, no, tell me no. You can tell me no. And then when we talk about what a decision might look like, Donald, like you talked about how, like, at the end of this call, we'll make a decision. He taught me, he was like, no, go into even more detail. What exactly does a decision of no look like? What exactly does a decision of yes look like? And so when I lay it out in that unreasonable way, like, if we're going to keep talking, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to email you. We'll end the call 3 minutes early and I'll get on your calendar. Like, that's just like, and it's, when I teach my clients this, they're just like, oof, man, I don't know about that. Right.
Uh-huh.
And then they do it. But prospects who are genuine and sincere in wanting to consider your services are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially for guys like me and you. Because
Exactly.
the great thing is, man, like, and I joked about this over the weekend. I was like, you guys can't use this because you're not a sales trainer. But anytime I have a prospect try and not schedule a next step with me, I just say, are you really considering hiring me to train your sales team? And you think I'm going to let you off this call without a next step? It's like, come on. Like, what? And is that what you want me to teach your sales team to do? And every time they laugh and they're like, okay, you're right. It's like, even if it's begrudging, they're like, that's actually a really good point. Okay.
In this conversation, with the training we're doing is on follow-up with them. So I was like, I got to follow up. I'm not going to sit here and go do no runaround mess. You're going to set a specific date and time with me. So I had to get over my stuff and send it with her. And it was worked out great. So
one of those, like, the unreasonable nature, one of the things I just tell my clients, I'm like, you have to have a next step scheduled every single time. And it has to be a clearly defined next step, which is a day, time, a purpose for the call, and a potential outcome. And we have a phrase called, like, don't let them off the leash. Because I lived in Baltimore, and I would walk my dog early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning. Uh-huh. And she was a sweetheart, and we lived right by this huge park. And most of the time, I would let her off the leash because it was super early, no one was there, and I could throw a ball and she could run around.
Yeah.
And one day I did that. And I'm not supposed to, of course. And I needed to get to work really early. I was working a job where I had to be in, like, at 6:30, 7 in the morning. And she saw a squirrel, and she was gone. Like, gone. She just bolted. Like, ran like a quarter mile, ran across the street, like, was gone. She just got distracted. She saw the squirrel and was gone. I had to run after her. It was in the winter. It was like 15 degrees out. I was so angry. I get back home, and I tell my wife, I'm like, this stupid dog. I, like, sent her down to her kennel in the basement. My wife's like, what's your problem? I said, I'm going to be late for work. She saw a squirrel. She ran away. This stupid dog. I was so angry. And my wife just looked at me. She said, look at you, all righteous, blaming a dog. She said, you let her off the leash. She's a dog. It is in her nature. When she sees a squirrel, she gets distracted and she runs after it. It's your job to keep her on the leash so that doesn't happen.
Come on.
And I was Yeah, she spoke some hard truths to me, and she was right. And so what I say in sales, it is in the nature of executives, it is in their nature to get distracted because they have 100 things they're responsible for. And the problem you're solving likely is one of 50 that they're trying to solve at the same time. If you do not keep them on the leash, if you do not keep them on your calendar, it is in their nature to deprioritize you, and you cannot blame them. You can only blame yourself. That doesn't mean it will always happen, right? Oftentimes, Amy came back. That was my dog's name. She went run away. More times than not, she came back. But guess what? She didn't always come back. Sometimes she got distracted and she was gone. And I had to chase after her. And then I blamed her for having to chase her, when really it was my fault that I set up circumstances in which she needed to be chased in the first place.
Man, I love this. This is so good. Listen, I wish I could keep you forever, Chris, but I know you got to go out and you got to follow up with some of those clients. Let's pretend that I'm listening to this episode and I'm like, this guy is dope. How do I connect with you?
Well, my website is sellasyoure.com, sellasyoure.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Caldwell. There are a lot of Chris Caldwells out there. I'm the one that lives in Capistrano Beach, California, who runs Sell As You Are. That one's me. So LinkedIn's my main channel. So find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and stuff too, but my team runs that. I personally run my LinkedIn account. So if you want to get at me, that would be the place. Or just my email, chris@sellasyoure.com.
Well, Chris, we appreciate this. I'll put this stuff in the show notes, and we'll make sure folks can get access to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you.
Hey, that was Chris Caldwell. I loved that episode. It was amazing. The story of the dog make total sense now, right? At the beginning when we were talking about it in our prep notes, we were talking about the story of the dog, and he's like, Donald, when I get there, you'll understand. So it was fun. I'm glad it resonated, and hopefully it makes sense to you. But don't be that person that is so clingy. Be a person in the sense of like you're trying to be so much to be liked that you're not necessarily doing the things that you should be doing to your prospect. You don't need a friend. They need somebody that's going to help them to be able to make a decision and solve a problem. Please go ahead and check out our sales mastermind. Go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind to find details. You can find more information about Chris in the show notes as well and connect with him. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to build that pipe. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.